Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast. And we've got plenty to get through because we are doing this with Ascot and Haydock on the agenda. And then, of course, we're going into the action on Boxing Day, aka St Stephen's Day in Ireland. We'll be having a quick look at that action. Not really helped by decks this year because there's racing on the Saturday for the first time in a while, which means decks are also on that day. But that's a Saturday. That's for Boxing Day and the 27th as well if you're in Ireland. So essentially, we're doing this pre-decks for the Christmas racing, but it can't be helped. We know what's likely to line up in the grade ones anyway, so we're focusing on those in the main and a bit of Welsh National as well. But as I say, this weekend is what we start with. We've got 6 races to preview. That we is Dan Overall and Ed Quigley, and they can say their little hellos as and when we get stuck into the racing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please. It makes it easier for you to take in all of the content we put out there, and have a look at episode 5 of the Cheltenham Trail with Don McLean and Matt Toombs, hosted by Daniel Hussey. All the trends for the big races at the festival, but they make it very relevant to each of the week's feature races. So make sure you check all that out. Right. First up, we've got the long walk hurdle. This is the 225 at Ascot. I'll have prices for you shortly, but Dan Overall, welcome along. It's very much this sort of division. Is the new kids on the block versus the old guard, and you are a new kid on the block fan.
Well, yeah, literally and metaphorically. But I think this is a great. I'm so glad all 10 stood their ground, because this could have really just cut up into a bit of a nothing affair. But fair play to everyone having a go. And it's a really trappy race, I think. Obviously, you can make the case that obviously the young kids coming through like West Balboa and Crambo, are they too short in the market based on what they've actually achieved? I would probably go with the theory that yes, they are. And to be honest, I do still think West Balboa would be the way I would play the race. I've been really impressed with the way she has progressed, and clearly a horse who relishes 3 miles, but she still has something to find to get to the level of, say, a Champ at Paisley Park. But then you look at them and they're going to be 12 in a week or so's time, and it's going to be a tough ask for them to be able to win a grade 1 at their age. For me, I think it's a race that I probably won't have a bet in. I just think it's extremely trappy. West Balboa, I think, is the most likely winner. A price is probably a point or two too short, in my opinion, but a really interesting race, I think.
Yeah, she's 4.33, 4.5 for Crambo. Champ is 6.5. Paisley Park is 7.0. Dash or Drasher doesn't stay but did last time is 9.5. Botox has 12.0. Thanks for not mentioning that, Dan.
Oh, no, I kicked you enough with that.
Blue King Doru is 13.0. Previous course winner. Youngest horse in the race, and the one that you fancy, Ed.
Yeah, it's an ageist market, isn't it? As Dan was kind of saying, I mean, the likes of West Balboa and Crambo would be getting a stone from Paisley Park and Champ in a handicap, and that half the price of them off level weights. Is a real confusing race. But Blue King Doro again fits the other ageist category. I see Paul Nichols kind of joking. Every statistician in Somerset suddenly arrived in his inbox telling him how a 4-year-old can't win this. But I just think this is a horse who really is on a roll. Obviously, 2 from 2 at the track, arrives on a hat trick, and again on official figures. Doesn't really have a lot to find with horses who are 5th the price of him, if you know what I'm saying. And just seems to be really going from strength to strength. Stepped up to just shy of 2.5 at the track last time out. And Harry Cobden in the unsaddling closure, first thing he said was, I definitely think he's a 3-miler. Let's have a crack at it. And so they concur. I agree. Essentially, I think this is a right old muddle, this, of 11 rising 12-year-olds who are a stone better than younger horses. Obviously, the 12-year-olds are probably regressing. The younger horses, how much can they improve? It's a right old mishmash. The facts are there are a lot of horses who've got to take a big step up, including Crambo. You know, the facts are the horse was beaten off 139 last time out, for all you want to make excuses. So, real muddling Christmas affair, but at a double-figure price. Blue King Doro on a hat trick. I'm beaten at the track. Cobden and Nichols on fire. That will do for me in the win and place markets.
I've got a fairly strong opinion on this race, probably stupidly, and that is that Champ is the horse to back and the horse to be with pretty strongly at 6.5. I think that's a bit of a gift of a price. I mean, I know West Balboa, she's looked good. She's lightly raced. I'd probably vote for her over Crambo. Crambo's been a little more highly tried, but as you say, they've both got a stone to find with Champ. And Paisley, but Champ is a horse who has to go fresh. I think he's 6 from 8 fresh in his career. He's had his win done. this is just the time to get him. He won't win anything else this season. But if he's going to win something, it's surely going to be this race, the race he won 2 years ago. I think he's only run twice here. He's won once. I don't know. He was just screaming at me off the page. Really, Champ as a really good bet, win and place. Given we've got a 10-runner field at 6.5, I thought that was very fair. So that's who I'm looking at. That is the Long Walk Hurdle. We then come to, I might need our producer just to confirm where we are going next. I think we're going to the 150 next, which is over 2 mile 3. And we've got, it's pretty open. You've got 4.0 triple trade, Captain Mathan 4.33, 5.5 for Black Jerry. Harper's Brook is 6.5, 7.0, and bigger the rest. I'm going to put up Black Jerry here, who likes the track. I know was pulled up on reappearance, but I mean that was Cheltenham. That was a very tall order at 40. In this sort of grade, he was largely very, very progressive. We know this trip suits. It did at Plumpton a couple of starts ago. This was at the back end of last season. He was really, really progressive last season, and he won at the track prior to that. I just thought he had the right profile for this sort of race. He should get the test that he wants, and he's still relatively lightly raced. So at 5.5, Black Jerry for me. Did anybody else have anything, first of all, for the 150?
Tempted by Chamblou.
Go on. Okay. Good old Chamblou.
Well,
my God, 7.0, the 3 Ps. Go on.
Down to 142. I mean,
hang on, he's got cheek pieces on. That's 4 Ps. Go on.
And a 1, technically. First time.
Yeah, I know. I just one of those. I just wondered, just given the drop in grade, class, drying ground, that's something else we haven't mentioned. It looks like the weather's going to be quite favourable, and we're going to end up with a majority of good more than anything in the ground at Ascot. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And for a horse who was up in the mid 150s 18 months ago, basically a stone off his back, cheap pieces on, I'm and ahhing at 7.0. Wouldn't it surprise you if he came absolutely swinging? This is a horse who was 4 fences clearing of Charlie Hall a year and a half ago, would it? So just a price dependent race, but no strong views at the moment.
Okay, if he's 7, I'm going to ask you to commit for the document. 7.0, Chamblou, yes or no?
Yeah, we'll commit 7 or bigger. Yeah,
love it, good. Gamble responsibly, 18 plus. BeGambleAware. The 3 o'clock is where we go. Just forcing someone to there. The 3 o'clock is where we go next, which is the Howden Silver Cup. Blackjack Magic is 5.0. Yeah Man is 6.5. Victorino 7.0. Ascot Clermont 8.0. Jeep Maker is 8.5, and bigger prices thereafter. All right, straight back at you, Ed. I think both of you actually, Ed and Dan, agree. Ed.
Yeah, Jeep Maker. Myself, Dan, on singing off the same hymn sheet here. Horse on a 4-timer, incredibly progressive type, as you'd have to be to be on a 4-timer for the Jamie Snowden team, having a wonderful season. And just horse going from strength to strength. I still think this horse will prove to be better than 133. I think trip will be fine. If there is a slight worry at his ground, I actually spoke to Jamie Snowden earlier in the week, and although the horse has won on good, but his best form has come on soft, he said he would like to have seen a few rain clouds arrive just to slow them up a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. But ground aside, I doubt there are more progressive and better treated horses in the lineup here. There's a few kind of out sorts individuals, isn't there, floating around, some old timers. And then you've got obviously the Venetia bandwagon and Anthony Honeyball's horse, Blackjack Magic, who's really clicked in recent times. There's a hot old race, providing Jeet Maker can bring his A game to this ground. I see him very little flaws in his profile.
All right, what do you want to add, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that the horse he beat and his stablemate Super Survivor is a shorter price for the Welsh National than Gitmaker is for this race, which to me just is a bit baffling, really. I think they're both equally progressive, maybe Gitmaker more so, and this is a weaker race. So I was a bit baffled as to why he's the price he is. Obviously, this is a step up on what he's been competing in previously, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to take to it. He seems a very uncomplicated type. His jumping has improved with every start. Will go forward in the say. If he's up to this class, I think he's got a very, very good chance. I don't think his handicap mark is all that harsh either.
Okay, I'm gonna put up a horse who I was dead against last time in the race won by Victorino, which is Yeah Man, who I think he might have won, to be honest, if it had stood up at the last. And he was £4 out of the handicap last time. Issues, he jumps left markedly. He's so well treated, though. Like, to do what he did last time and still be in there pitching when turning for home, he looked like he was going to fall out the back of the telly. I just think when it comes to horses you think are this well treated, whichever way around they're running, I think it's worth backing them. And he's just about value, I think. So Gavin Cromwell's doing pretty well in the UK at the moment this year. So I thought he was worth the bet. Obviously back in the handicap, although officially £2 high time. I think a reverse form with Victorino, but he does need to jump a bit better and stand up. Maybe he will on second start of the season. That is the 3 o'clock. The 3:30. I've been getting stuck into Michael DC, who is he's just sent something to the production group we have with us all with Christmas hats on, and I can tell you, I'll forward it on to the group we have. It's much better with us all in Christmas hats. Really, Ed, we've let the side down, and Ed, if we're being
too
honest.
early for Christmas.
If only Steve was here, he would have bought that one for everyone and more.
Yeah, exactly. He is the hat man. The 3:35. We've only got one bet here. I don't know about you, Ed, but I largely sat it out because the two JP horses were really giving me a bit of a head wreck. I was most tempted by Impostoir, but I just they honestly just made the race a no bet race for me, but not thankfully for Dan Overall.
Yeah, the probably the best handicap of the day, and we could have all set it out. But I think this comes back to the Ascot race he was in previously, out of Belly. I was always of the opinion going into that race that this race here was actually the long-term plan. If you read some of the stable tours, you read some of the horse to follow books at the start of the season, they always had this race in mind as his target. And I think last time out, it was all about getting a bit of experience for him. Obviously, very lightly raced. They held him up. He was wide pretty much all the way. He was the only horse to get close to Knickerbocker Glory, who made all that day. I thought that was a really encouraging run for a horse who was just clearly learning a bit. And his jumping hadn't always been great as a novice. So I think it was very much a case of learning on the job. I thought he shaped like a horse who definitely has a race like this in him. And for all that I respect Iberico Lord in Impostoir, obviously Iberico Lord's Greatwood form is working out extremely well. And that is, I have no problem with him being the market leader as a result. But he's won his handicap this season. Belly, I think this has always been his main target, whereas this may be a bit of an afterthought just after the Greatwood for Iberico Lord. I think he's definitely got a race in him off this mark. And that race itself at Ascot's working out well with the third horse was bad, and he finished very close to Hansard next time out. Only up £1, still completely unexposed, and a great target training yard as well. I think he's got a big chance here.
It's 6.5. Yard are going on quite nice as well. That's Belly. We move on to Haydock and to the Tommy Whittle. We get prices up for you here. So the one Bridge last time out course and distance winner is 3.5. Credo is next in at 5.5, 6.0 for Eleanor Bob, 7.5 for On Guard, 9.0 Bill Baxter. Bigger prices thereafter. I might kick us off with On Guard because this was a bit of a team steam when he won the race a couple of years ago. Certainly Steve Jones was with, and I think a couple of others were too. He's obviously won last time. I suppose my slight concern is he rarely once when coming down and then won subsequently. The boxes he ticks are ground should be fine. Obviously course and distance is fine, and he's in form. Just Eleanor Bob, I think, probably wants better ground. Her sister seems to. Credo, I'd rather back probably Credo than Famous Bridge, albeit Famous Bridge won last time, but he's still short enough at 5.5. So I thought with ground in his favour and back at the scene of a course distance win, 7.5 win and place, I was warm enough, but it wasn't an overly confident shout anyway. Probably half a point win and place. Ed, I was very tempted with this horse as well. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've spoken about good ground at Ascot. It's going to be pretty much heavy at Haydock. That's really playing to the strengths of Bill Baxter. I think he just jumped this lot into the ground, to be honest with you. I think it's smallish field. I think they rode the horse a little bit more, I wouldn't say patiently, but they didn't quite hit the turbo early doors over 3.25 miles at Newbury in the big handicap there. And I think they'll be much more prominent up in the van flat track, deep ground, jumps for fun, been eased to a mark of 140. I just think everything is in this horse's favour. I'm surprised the horse is as big as he is, to be honest with you, in the market. I know everyone's always got a lump round 12 stone, but it's quite a compressed handicap, isn't it? I mean, there's only £6 separating the top 5 horses in the market. So, Bill Baxter for me. I just think everything's in his favour, to be honest with you. James Bowen back in the saddle, and I'd be disappointed if he was out the 3.
Dan, who are you with?
Yeah, trappy little racist, I think. But I landed on Cooper's Cross, who was pretty progressive last season. Obviously won the Sky Bet Handicap Chase off 128 at Doncaster. All his best form seems to come on flat, galloping left-handed tracks, which you'll get here. Second in the Scottish National as well to Kitty's Light, so we know stamina isn't going to be any kind of issue. Had excuses for some of his disappointments. Obviously, recently over the national fences in the Sefton, finished down the field that day. But was a notable drifter on that occasion. I just thought looked like he was desperately in need of it. And maybe after being brought down on his previous start over the national fences, maybe had a bit of a memory of that and wasn't necessarily in love with it. And interestingly, Stuart Coulthard had the winner of this race, I think in 2017 with Captain Redbeard. On his previous start, he was also down the field in the Sefton. So it's been a route to success with the yard before. I think this is his kind of conditions. The only concern with me is the ground. He tends to be kept to a better surface, or has been mainly, but he has won on soft before and gone well on soft ground. But obviously, Haydock Heavy is a different beast entirely. If he handles the ground, I still think he's got a 3-mile handicap chase in him.
All right, that's the Tommy Whittle. Good luck to Peter, who's along, who says, I'm on the Bill train. That's, I would assume, Bill Baxter. The 240, the 205 we go back to now. This is he is on the Bill train. This is a pretty open handicap hurdle, and a Jaguar, who was declared to run today, but has obviously chosen this, is 4.0, 6.0 for Bois Gilbert. Bubble Doobie is 7.5. Risk d'Argent is also 7.5, 8.0. The Churchill Lad, the Gubernator is 9.5, bigger prices thereafter. Go on, Dan, straight back at you.
Yeah, Jaguar is the fly in the ointment here, because I was hoping he'd run at Ascot, but obviously I think they want the softer ground for him. I think he's got a massive chance. But Bois Gilbert is a horse I do quite like. I think he's very progressive. I think he won with more in hand than the winning margin suggested at Kelso. He beat Autumn Return, who won on her next time out, and she's a very solid yardstick. She never runs a bad race. I think it's a very fair level of form. He then went to the 4-year-old Maston Hurdle at Cheltenham, which I think going into it, everyone said pretty weak race, but it's working out reasonably well. Obviously, Blue King Daru won the Ascot Hurdle. Jigger Joan was second, who's been running well in handicap company. The 4th bolted up in a Sandown handicap as well. And I thought Bois Gilbert was shaped really well that day. He was a bit too keen. He had no cover the entire way and still managed to get into a challenging position coming down to the last. Tied up the hill, but that's understandable given his early exertions. I still think there's far more to come from him off a mark 121. The only concern is Jaguar for me. But other than that, I think Bois Gilbert is very, very solid.
And once again, Ed and Dan agree. Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo everything there. The collateral form, as Dan says, that Cheltenham run last time out. Well, see, I fancy Blue King Doro to go well in a Grade 1. So, I want to see some good form lines there. And yes, Spirit Dano came out and romped over. So collateral form's great. Haydock Heavy is an unknown. But look at it, pedigree, lots of soft ground on the dam side. Going right through it, being really boring. I know it doesn't always mean everything, but Dam Sister went over 3.5 in heavy. So I don't think that you could use that as an excuse, put it that way. And off 121, I think there's plenty of scope for improvement there still.
I thought you said Dan's sister went over 3.5 in the heavy.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you can fill us in.
She's a robust mare. Yeah, sturdy mare.
that is knowledge. Well done to her. Dan, do you have a sister?
No.
Okay, good. Good.
Not that I know of.
Otherwise, no. The plot thickens. Good. Well, that took a turn. I'm with Gubernator, who does want testing ground over this distance and likes the track. That was it. Race fit from that. Although it was a little while ago now, from that win at Catterick on heavy ground, has gone well here before. I do think on better ground he would definitely want a little bit further. But if it's out and out heavy ground, that should be just about ideal. It's a tepid win and play for me. One in the 1240 at Ascot.
Yeah, wrapped up in May. I think the handicappers had an uneducated guess at this. was it 118 for handicap debut, Cobden and Nichols. Now, look, I've had too many glasses of port already, because this horse has been beaten as odds-on favourite on his last 3 starts, which is normally run for the hills kind of angle. But I think there have been really valid reasons in all of them. And I think absolutely everything's perfect for this horse. Now, up to 3 miles, been given 118. Obviously, chased home deafening silence last time out, and that horse has gone on to win the Winter Novices. I just think, I don't know, I can't believe he's been given 118 for a handicap debut mark, and I think this extra test of stamina will really suit. And again, I'll be disappointed if this one isn't jumping the last in with a chance, which in fairness is pretty much what's happened on the last 3 times you've done your money. But wrapped up in May for me in the 1240.
All right, we're going to Christmas now, and we're going to start with the King George on Boxing Day, the feature of the festive period, ultimately. And I think we've got 3 different shouts here. So, Dan, you first of all, who are you looking at and why? If they run, of course.
Yeah, and I think he's going to run. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about his jockey and who it's going to be, and I've come down on Hewitt in the end. A lot of question marks, I think you can throw at pretty much everything at the top of the market here. A prime Allaho that we know from the Punchestown Gold Cup and his Ryanair would win this. But other than knowing that he's alive, we learned absolutely nothing about how he actually is and what ability remains last time out. And that was an absolutely nothing race. And it would be a hell of a training performance to get a horse with injury coming now 9 years old to win a King George. He could well do it if he retains that ability, but I'm not willing to play him at the prices. Brayman's Game has just decided he doesn't like finding anything off the bridle again. Shishkin, I couldn't have at all. I just don't like him. I can't see why the real whacker's as short as he is. And it kind of led me to Hewitt, really, who I just thought was overpriced earlier in the week when it was a bit unknown if he was running. And now I still think he's overpriced. I think you go back to that Gold Cup where he was running fresh, so the freshest angle was no problem. That was on the ground soft and ideal. And he was running an absolute stormer from the front when falling 2 out. And arguably that fall actually saved him from having a tougher race than some of the others. And we can say whatever about the form of the Gold Cup afterwards. I think there's no denying that at the time, that was a very serious race. All the right horses were there. He was almost the odd one out, really, because you had all these Grade 1 winners and all the fancied horses there. And he was just outrunning his price yet again. Incredibly tough horse. We know he goes very well on good ground as well, goes right-handed, no problem. This could turn into a real stamina test as well with a few pace angles in the race. We know he's got confirmed stamina for further, so that's no problem. And I just thought he was overpriced. And I think the booking of Gavin Sheehan, man of the moment, that can only be a positive as well.
Yes, and that's what Brad has been along to say. I think Gavin Sheehan rides, he does. I think for the horse, that's a really positive, really good jockey booking. Really, really like that. That was levelled at you then, Ed. Why is the real whacker, who you like as short as he is, 10.0?
Yeah, I could totally get the point in the fact that the horse was pulled up last time out. Came back lame, didn't he? He struck into, etc., etc. I can forgive one bad run with a valid excuse, and obviously on the form line of the Brown Advisory and everything he did last year, I think Kempton's probably tailor-made for him. I think an easy 3. We've had this chat on a previous show. I said I think if they met again in the Gold Cup, Jerry Colomb would beat him by a furlong, but I think 3 miles on a flat track. It's got a lot of pace on here. I presume Allaho will go forward. Generally speaking, that's the only way he's ever been ridden. And I think the real whacker will go forward. And I just think 3 miles, good ground, Kempton will jump for fun. I think a few of these will be, as Simon Holt used to say, they'll be at it in behind early doors. And again, as for all the reasons that Dan mentioned, there's problems with all of them. Brave Man's Games lost his last 4 races. Will Shishkin race if he does? Someone did have the stats the other day I was reading on first time out in a King George, and it reads worse than my Christmas shopping. You just start going through them, and I think it's a race full of all sorts of. It's a beautiful rogues gallery, put it that way, of the highest order. It's not a strong shout by any stretch of imagination. I must confess I have backed the horse at bigger prices, but yeah, the real whacker I think will go off of Allaho. This will be really set up. There'll be. Any flaws in those behind will be exposed. And I could see, again, will Hewitt go forward? He was ridden fairly promptly in the Gold Cup, wasn't he? So tactics are going to be fascinating.
Frodon in there as well.
Frodon in there, and then probably the Frodon farewell. This is just, as a neutral, gets me absolutely buzzing.
Our producer, Dan Hussey, by the way, has said, quoted 34.0 Allaho for a goal. If anyone's interested in that, I can't believe if they have other horses for the race that he will run in that, but you never know. The reasons that you say, so I was thinking I can't back a horse like Brave Man's Game. And then I think it'll set up ideally for him. I think he'll be ridden off the pace. I think Allaho, the real whacker, Hewick and Frodon will all go forward. I think Allaho has to go forward to win, but he won't be left alone. And I'd rather back Brave Man's Game at 3.5. I take the point about finding off the bridle, but this is Paul Nicholls in the King George. Like he's been training for about 30 years, and 13 times he's won a King George. I mean, that's absolutely ludicrous. So if I don't know, I feel like I'm going to come away from it thinking it was obvious, and I think 3.5 is fair enough. I just couldn't really back anything else bar Hewick. And Brave Man's Game is far from solid, but I just think the race will set up ideally. So Brave Man's Game for me at 3.5. We come to the Welsh National, nothing for me. I haven't really got my head around it, but luckily Ed and Dan are here. Ed, first of all.
Yeah, it was that Jeet Maker form again. So obviously I'd like to see that horse run well. But yeah, Super Survivor, was mentioned earlier on. This has been the target of this horse since medieval times, and I think he's got everything in his favour. Again, the price is kind of disappearing. In fact, the field is kind of disappearing, isn't it? When I last looked at the last acceptor stage, we're not going to get a 20-runner hurly-burly event. And but look, I think we're going to get Soft Gown, 3.5 miles. The horse has got cracking form at Chepstow. Obviously, won the novice chase on the corresponding card 12 months ago over the 3 miles. Looked better the further he went. I think he's still well handicapped, etc., etc., etc. There's no kind of algorithms going on here, and I'd love to come up with a more convoluted answer, but I just think he's ticking every box the favourite wants. He's probably my Christmas nap.
Ooh, like that. Christmas nap from Ed, a Super Survivor in the Welsh National. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't quite go far as that with my selection, but I am very strong on Autonomous Cloud here. Long been a fan of him. Always looked like a proper staying chaser, especially when he was a novice hurdler. Massive horse. I think Fergal's always had this as the plan from the start of the season. He's been laid out for this race. Good reappearance run when the race fell apart, but in fact, that just kind of made his prep run even better. Well, didn't go up too much. Had those two that covered when they fell at the second last. Would have gone up more if they stood up, in my opinion. I think he just ticks a lot of boxes. 7 years old, lightly raced, very, very good jumper. The kind who doesn't do more than he needs to. He will stay all day for you. Off a lightweight, I think every box is pretty much ticked, and I think he's absolutely primed to run a massive race.
Okay, and I am going with nothing in that. We move on to Leopardstown. The reason I wasn't sure is because a great old friend of the show has just walked past, Sam Turner, who is here. There he is. Look at this.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you?
Yes, appearance.
Who's going to win the King George?
I haven't got a clue.
He hasn't got a clue. He's got to Dubai. You look so well.
Thank you, old friend.
And we miss you.
Yes, miss you too.
Right, there we are. That's Sam
How's it,
Turner.
boys?
Sam Turner, everyone. What a man. I am looking to Leopardstown now with Mighty Bandit. We're going to come to Leopardstown. Obviously, we've got going to have decks on the 23rd for the 26th and 27th, but I am going to focus on Mighty Bandit on the 26th. I think he's the most likely run. I think he's also got Carla Conti in here, Gordon. If this horse is going to win the Triumph, he's going to win this, and he's 2.2. That's in the 110. I think he's really good. Obviously, you can get a load of horses come out for the Triumph in January, but right now I think this is the best juvenile we've seen. Mighty Bandit, 2.2. Ed?
Jerry Colomb. He was my Royal Ascot nap, and he's still my nap now. I mean, the Savills Chase, 225 on the 28th of December. It's going to be the best 4-runner race, or one of them we've seen for ages. It sounds like Galopin de Champs, Fast or Slow, Jerry Colomb, and a returning A Plutard, all locking horns over 3 miles. But I think, Gallopin, questions to answer. Fast or Slow, I haven't quite bought into it yet. Maybe that's just me being snobby. But Jerry Colomb, I think, just turns up, comes off the bridle, goes past him up the home straight. Happy Christmas.
Simple as that. Dan?
Yes, on the 27th, we have the Future Champions Novice Hurdle. Down Memory Lane's been absolutely smashed into a very short price favourite. In my opinion, if Daddy Longlegs runs, and based on the way the market has worked out, he looks like being Willie's number one, or at least maybe his only runner here. I think he should be favourite based on what he achieved on his hurdling debut. Really impressed by that. Did absolutely everything right. I think the form of that is more substantial than what Down Memory Lane achieved in his maiden hurdle. Irish Panther is a bit of a tricky horse who doesn't like winning, but he had very, very solid bumper form. The third was another horse of Gordon Elliott's called Cletus Poulor. I think it's actually going to make a decent staying hurdler in time as well. I just think it's absolutely rock solid. And given, I think he's 5.0 currently and down memory lane's about 2.25, I'd almost have them the other way around. I think Daddy Longleg should be favourite, and I think he'll win this.
Okay, any other Christmas bets with an eye on the novice hurdlers you mentioned? Ballyburn, I think keep an eye on his declaration. If he goes up to Grade 1 Company, I still think I'd back him because I think he's very good, but I don't think he will. I think he'll run in the maiden hurdle, and therefore he'll probably be about 1.5, probably even shorter. But just keep an eye on where he goes and keep an eye on him for the future, Ballyburn. I think he was better than the Bear result last time. Cam's in the new Tolworth hurdle, the old Tolworth hurdle for me. Like his run last time and his win, and I know that the connections really, really like him. And the other one is Buxy D'Epri in the 140 at Aintree if running. Buxy D'Epri, who, well, I think I'm saying that right, who was second at Sandown last time, crying out for a step up in trip, has gone up £4 as a result, but I still think has a bit in hand, and I'd be pretty confident that he will go very close in that contest. Ed?
Yep, I'm funny enough, it'll just be the new old Tolworth. I'll be taking him on Favour and Fortune, horse of Alan King's, late Sir Trevor Hemmings colours. Look pretty exciting so far over hurdles. I think flat tracks probably suit. Be an exciting chaser in time, as you would expect. But yeah, I'll be taking him on with that one. It sounds like he's going to run Favour and Fortune for the Alan King team on Boxing Day up at Aintree.
And you got a curveball here, Dan. If running in the Quarto Star.
Yeah, if Classical Dream does run in the Quarto Star, and the market suggests he may well do. Obviously, they've got Grange Clare West in there as well. I think he's just got an absolutely massive chance in that race. I think deep race, obviously a few unknowns, kind of Relais Francais being talked up as the next coming of Jesus Christ. I think it's hard to quantify what he's actually achieved. Giovinco's respected, but I think we know what Classical Dream
can't have that horse. Can't have the French horse.
No, well, I think he's also market leader. I think leave him alone. I mean, there's some French experts out there, but every time I try and get one of these French horses right, I get them horribly wrong. Melantino being the most recent example. So I'm just learning to leave them alone. And Classical Dream, we know his ability. Like, he's just absolutely top class horse on his day. A sharp 3 miles, I think, is absolutely ideal for him. Strong travelling type. His chase debut, the way he jumped was absolutely superb. I think he could actually just have a class edge on these. And if he is running, I think he'd be a very good bet. And then obviously the new Aintree meeting, and the first race is a 2.5 mile mare's handicap hurdle. And I think if Sherry Darm runs, I think she's absolutely thrown in off a mark 115. I'm not really sure why she's that lowly rated. I'd have her about £10 higher, to be honest. She was really well backed on her hurdling debut. She was a point winner, bumper winner. They were talking about her as a mare's novice hurdle contender after that win on a hurdling debut. Next time out, she's given far too much to do when held up. The winner made all in a horse called Push the Button for Nigel Twiston-Davis. He's rated 132. And when you take into account the jockey's claim, he was only giving her £1, and she was about 5 lengths behind, and he's rated 132, and she had to come from off the pace where the winner made all under a great ride. The third ran really well in the Albert Bartlett trial at Cheltenham the other day. They pulled miles clear of the rest. I'm not sure how she's rated 115. Back in Mare's company in a 0 to 120, she could win this very easily if she runs.
All right, thank you. Brad says 208 at Limerick. Miss Agatha Yates, good luck to him. And our esteemed producer, this is Daniel Hussey, likes In the Pocket versus that's in the Novice Chase, isn't it? And I Will Do It for the Welsh National. Those are a couple for you. Right, Matchbook Zero long shot. Don't forget, 10 a.m. each day it goes live. Most likely to be getting best odds given the nature of Matchbook Zero. No, zero margin, zero commission. I'm with Larry, who will hopefully run this time in that 3 mile chase at Ascot. Didn't line up last time, was withdrawn at the start. But Larry from off the pace. Ed?
Blue King Doro. If we can hit top 3 at least, I'm happy.
Ooh, and Dan in the 315.
A bit of a rogue one. Yeah, rogue on this one. Scandyberg in that 315 at Haydock. I think just getting back on really testing ground, I think it's going to suit him. First, cheap pieces go back on for the first time since his best run last season. He's dropped to a mark 2 stone below his best, and there's a couple of really keen going front runners in here who could just make this a real grueling test. He'll be the one I think will appreciate that the most, and he's probably going to be a massive price because he hasn't really run that well in a long time.
And you've got a lay for us, sir.
Yeah, I'm prepared to take on Captain Guinness in the Grade 1. He's had 9 attempts in Grade 1s, hasn't won any of them. Admittedly, this could end up being the easiest one he's contested, but I'm just not buying into the idea that, given how exposed he is, he's suddenly turned into a Grade 1 horse, even though you can say his last 3 runs have been his best. I'd love it if Appreciate It ran here instead of going up to 3 miles. I think if they resumed positive tactics over this trip, I think he could put it up to Captain Guinness and maybe just get away on the front end. I thought that was a good step in the right direction, the John Durkan. Obviously, a good run, which we'll be looking at in terms of fast or slow and gallop and Deschamps form coming into this. And when you look back at his campaign last season, I think it all kind of went downhill when they started riding him differently up in trip. They started restraining him in over 2.5 miles, didn't really suit, up until finishing third in the Irish Arkle. He looked really, really impressive. I think going back to that run style will suit, and I can't trust Captain Guinness at a short price.
Have you got one for us, Ed?
Burdett Road is going to be a very short price to win the finale at Chepstow. I just thought it was a very odd race to go for, in my opinion. These are horses with a lot of natural gears. It's currently soft at Chepstow. There's a lot of rain forecast throughout Christmas Day. It could be an absolute swamp there, and he could be going off 1.2 or something. They might have a great deal to beat. It sounds like Joseph O'Brien sending a horse over, and then there'll be a couple of rags, for want of a better phrase. But Chepstow heavy with a horse class gears, get me nervous. Put it that way. I just thought it was a strange. I thought keeping bubble wrap for the Adonis or something, or just seems to me just a little bit of an odd target for a horse who had obviously group flat form or high class handicap flat form at Royal Ascot on the flat and stuff. But James Owen knows better. Cobden will be on board, but if he's a very short price and the ground's heavy, I'll be hitting the lay button.
Okay, and then best bets, we've got one per race for you here. So you can have a cheeky Trixie if you want. I would champion the long walk for reasons I've already given. Ed, your best?
Bill Baxter in a Tommy Whittle 130.
And Dan?
I've gone off piece with the Boxing Day horse, Cherry Dame, in the 11.55 at Aintree. She's just too well handicapped to ignore.
Beautiful stuff. That was a pleasure. Dan Overall, thank you. Ed Quigley, thank you. A thank you to our producer, Daniel Hussey, for all his work throughout this year. As ever, brilliant. And a special thank you to Dan's non-existent sister. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.